Hey everybody, Omar here, the Knife Shark Guy, and I am back with another fun-filled video for you. And today, we're going to be doing a little discussion video on customs, particularly the difference between a frame lock custom, such as my Clyde Chalmor that I showed you guys yesterday, and a liner lock that's all souped up, like my Erucus Plumeris. I guess it's the LL51 flipper, I think. Can't remember the name of this one. But there are certain challenges for knife makers if they're going to be making a frame lock versus a liner lock. And I'm going to explain why. So, when we're talking about a liner lock, everybody really should understand by now that the way I look at it, okay, the actual knife is underneath in a liner lock. You see all the blue in there? That's actually the knife itself. It's pretty much put together with these two titanium pieces, and there's usually like a back spacer or something on there to hold all the knife together. And then the rest of it, all the rest of that stuff there, is choice materials, pretty much like the bling on the knife, right? And all those items on a liner lock make the knife an artwork, okay? That's what you're paying for, the actual artwork of the knife, as well as it being a tool, okay? And that's the case with the liner lock. I mean, and the options are limitless on a liner lock, right? Because the actual knife is underneath all these scales. Basically, the basic part of the knife is hidden underneath all this bling, the bolster, the, pretty much the bolster and the scales that make up the knife in many cases, the rope, or I guess the file work on the back spacer, and of course, even the back spacer itself would be considered art. So you have so many options, right, to make a knife beautiful if you're going to be a knife maker that will be making liner locks like these two guys here. These are absolutely beautiful knives, right? And because they're limitless in their options for making the knife an artwork, you kind of wonder, where is the art on a frame lock, right? Because you're so limited as to what you can do. Because, just to make myself clear, this is a frame lock, right? Usually, if this were a liner lock, this would be the knife, right? But then there'd be scales piled on top of it. There'd be like bolster here, another bolster over here, some kind of decorative handle. But in a frame lock, this is the knife. This is it. Whatever is out on the outside of it, you're stuck with it. And as a knife maker, it's up to you to try to make this knife as well appreciated as a knife like a liner lock that's got tons of bling on it. So when you think about it, how can a frame lock knife that is limited in what they can do to the titanium piece, because there's not a lot of bling on it, because this is the knife, you see what I'm saying? This is it. You kind of wonder, where's the art that I'm buying? And I think frame lock knife makers are constantly being challenged as to how can I make this type of knife, a frame lock, compete with this type of knife, a liner lock, where there's limitless options that I could do. I don't have to have these bolsters. I can put different bolsters on. I don't have to have these scales on here. I can put different scales. I can have limited things I can put on a liner lock. But on a frame lock, man, you can't really do much. So the answer to your question is, the art is all in the details. I mean, if you guys watched my video yesterday on this knife, the Clyde Chalmor Viper, I think I was probably struggling a little bit because there really wasn't a lot of bling, and I had to make sure that the people watching my video understand that the detail done on the frame lock is where all of the beauty is. I mean, in a sense that if you look at this knife, everything on it is really very well handmade done, all smooth. There's no rough edges anywhere. You know what I mean? Everything is well polished, like these little tiny screws here. And the fact that the pivot and the standoff decorative there is nice and smooth, right? That's the art on a frame lock. That is what the knife maker has to concentrate on. That's what the knife maker has to work on to get you to see what he's doing. He wants you to appreciate the fact that these pivots are dead flat and you can run your finger across it and you can't feel the titanium. He wants you to understand that it was incredibly hard work for him to put these slashes to match up with the actual frame lock cut. He wants you to understand that. He wants you to understand how difficult it was for him to get this inlay into the handle. How difficult that was to do that, and for you to not be able to feel the separation between this red part here and this gray part, the actual titanium in itself. That's the art. That's what a frame lock custom knife maker has to concentrate on. But there's advantages to that too. I mean, because this is a frame lock, and really the only thing you can actually have a customer control is probably the inlays on the knife, right? Well, if instead of having these fat red carbon fiber scales, I'd rather have black. Well, that's real easy for the knife maker to do. He doesn't have to argue with you. You don't have to argue with him. The two of you understand that the art that's going to be put on this knife is limited. You can't have a ton of stuff on it like you can have on this Irukas Blumeras one-off piece where I've got these marble carbon shredded fiber scales and this bolster. So you got all this bling here. And you as a customer can change your mind at any time and tell that knife maker, you know what, I don't want that color on it. I want it red. I don't want this black marble, shredded marble carbon fiber on it. I want to have white Westinghouse handles on it. So now you're driving the knife maker absolutely insane versus a frame lock knife maker where you're not going to make him crazy. He can actually just go ahead and concentrate, right, on getting the little details to pop at you so you can appreciate it. You can appreciate the fact that this little teeny tiny screw is so polished that it's popping out at your eye. You can appreciate this one also. The fact that this fat red carbon fiber almost looks like it's 3D, right? Because when I put my knife in the light, I can see that you know, it looks like it's like sculpted on there or something with that lighting on there. It looks like it's in 3D. You can appreciate that, and that's it. But you can appreciate his jimping on the top. This is where all the art is. It's kind of hidden on a frame lock. You don't really see it. You almost have to find the beauty as a buyer of the knife yourself and find whatever you can find on the frame lock as art. I mean, obviously on this knife, I cheated a little bit. I got a Damascus blade, so there's your art right there, right? But everything else is pretty basic. I mean, if you don't appreciate the beauty of how smooth that pocket clip is, you know, does that mean you're spoiled? I don't know, man. Does it mean that you really only want to deal with liner locks where you're limitless options? Or can you live with a frame lock where the knife is the knife and the knife maker is actually just doing whatever he can to make the knife as pristine as possible, and him hoping that you'll see that on the knife and recognize that as the art on the knife. Case in point, I mean, Clyde Chalmor is exceptional as a frame lock knife maker. I'll tell you why. For one thing, nobody goes through the trouble of putting inlays on both sides of the knife. That's hard work to try to figure out how am I going to get a an inlay or some kind of decorative on the back side of the knife here, right? And he's figured out a way to put inlays on both sides of this knife, which is incredibly difficult to do because, again, he, as a frame lock knife maker, has to compete with all this bling here, which is quite obvious, right? It's quite obvious on both these knives. I mean, you see it, you don't have to guess. Yep, there's the art. Does that mean that I get to ignore everything else underneath it? Like, do I get to ignore the fact that this is a really smooth titanium knife, that it's kind of like almost mirror polished over here? I mean, just something as simple as that. I would naturally appreciate that on a frame lock, right? Versus a liner lock where there's so much other stuff on there going on that maybe as a knife buyer, I might actually ignore this part of the knife that actually should be recognized on the piece. And I think that's basically what this discussion is about. I mean, how much art do you really need as a knife collector to have it be considered art? So let's take a look at the Trevor Berger knife. Where's the art on this one? Well, it's pretty obvious. I mean, you got a whole slab of carbon fiber on one side. There's your G10. Actually, I believe that's, yeah, your G10 backspacer there, open construction. And then on the other side, you've got this full-blown titanium frame lock. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, well, where's the art on that? Well, it's pretty simple, isn't it? The art on this knife, we have the carbon fiber scale on this side, but then on the other side, we just have a titanium frame lock, right? But the art, how about those machined lines on there? You know, how much would you appreciate that on your knife? You're not going to see that on a regular production knife, nothing like that. That was difficult for Trevor Berger to do, and if you don't appreciate that, what does that say about us as knife collectors? You know, maybe we don't really deserve, or maybe we're not really worthy of this hobby if we don't start appreciating the things that a knife maker goes through to present an artful piece, simply because he's limited to the actual knife itself, just a piece of titanium, and he has to do whatever he can to that piece of titanium to make it look beautiful to you as a buyer. I mean, we've got a really beautiful blue pivot ring. Would you notice that, or would you not notice that? I mean, you've got a really gorgeous hand-rub finished blade there. Hand-rub. That means that the knife maker actually did that himself on this knife, hoping that maybe you'll see it and appreciate how beautiful the, you know, the hand-rub look on that blade is. So, I mean, as you get more and more into customs, you're beginning to understand the eccentricities and the hardships of what a knife maker goes through. I mean, and that's why we plunk down so much money for these pieces of artwork, because a lot of people are saying, well, you're really just buying the knife maker. Yeah, you really are, aren't you? Because these are the guys that make the knife look like this. So what's wrong with that, right? I mean, take a look at that pocket clip. If you're not looking closely, you may very well miss those machined lines on there, those 3D lines on there. That's all part of the art, right? But on a liner lock, would you really pay attention to that? There's so much other stuff on here. Oh, wow, look, I missed the long, cool thing on this, you know, the cool, you know, indentation here on my pocket clip. All I saw was that ball on there. That's cool. Well, I mean, it's almost like you're spoiled by getting a liner lock, and you're not really appreciating what the knife maker goes through to make the knife look like this by getting a liner lock. That's just an argument. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It's just when you're dealing with a frame lock, we're talking about a different kind of a knife maker who's dealing with a different kind of material, who has to make this as beautiful as these, and have you be able to appreciate these knives, these frame locks, his work as a frame lock maker, in the same fashion as a liner lock knife maker. And they have to work a lot harder at creating the art because the options are limited. I mean, but at the same time, you know, you can't help but look at this knife and go, how the hell did he do that pivot? Because it's flat. I want my finger across it. I don't feel the difference between the silver part and the gray part. There's none. I don't feel. You have to be able to appreciate that on the knife. And, you know, because that's really all you have to work with if you're going to buy something like this. But at the same time, right, you're getting a thicker piece of titanium on the knife, so that's a plus. I mean, versus, you know, a liner lock where what if the bolster cracks? What if the this carbon fiber material, something happens to it or gets all scratched up and it loses its beauty? Well, at least on a frame lock, the knife is the knife, you know, and there's not too many things you can do to it. It's already out in front, and the knife maker has pretty much done his best to make it look as beautiful as it is. And still be able to be compete with these liner lock makers who are able to give you all kinds of bling and you just automatically go, wow, that's gorgeous. Versus buying a frame lock where you have to pay just a little bit more attention to where the art is and really appreciate it. So this is Omar, the knife shark guy, kind of comparing where the beauty is on the, you know, on a frame lock knife and how much more challenging it is for both the buyer and the knife maker to create this art and have it be as appreciated as something that is more obvious. So this is Omar, the knife shark guy, signing off again on this discussion video on frame lock customs versus liner lock customs. And I will see you guys in my next video. And in my next video, I'll push these down a little bit, man. Yeah, in my next video, I will be presenting a new knife. So be on the lookout on my channel for the shark bite, because there will be another one. In fact, there's going to be 2 of them. How's that? I went a little insane. I bought another knife today. I know. I shouldn't have done it, but I did do it. So anyway, I will see you guys in the next video. Have a wonderful Saturday evening, and you guys take care.